Hi everyone, it's Kay of Kay's Creative Home. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be using these 4 ribbons, 4 of the deco mesh you see on the side there, and this seashell wreath frame to make a Dollar Tree wreath for fall, and we're going to do a little turkey. Alright, I'm starting, I think in the end I used 2 rolls of this mesh and 2 rolls of the green, you'll see in the end. So I'm starting by cutting off this raw edge at the end, and then I'm going to be making 20-inch strips. So I lay my mesh down to the 0 point and I'm cutting at 20. So what I'm going to be doing is gathering it along one edge like we did for the 3-tier triple crown. Like we did for the Monroe triple crown. So you couldn't really see what I'm did just there. So I'm going to do it again, and hopefully the camera angle will be a little better because that was just rolling over itself and it was hard to see. What we actually do is curl a little bit or fold it under on one end. I did a little bit of a curl. And then 1 inch away from the end, we're going to gather it and then curl it when we get to the final end. Again, curl or fold it over. Because I'm working with it curl side up, I'm going to go ahead and let it curl. Okay, so I'm just cutting up my whole roll here because I know I'm going to be using at least this many. I wasn't sure how many I would need. This is my first time making this wreath, so in the end you'll know exactly how many you will need. You can count them up. Alright, so I curl the end a little bit. This mesh has yellow at one end and brown at the other end. So I want to make sure that the brown end is going to be sticking out. So I'm gathering on the end that has the yellow. I chose to just take that first metallic line and try to follow that line together, my mesh. And you can see with this Dollar Tree mesh, it just wiggles and curls and moves all over the place. But just do your best to stay right with that line. So again, a little bit of a curl on one end, I flipped it over, and on the yellow edge I am gathering right along that first metallic strip. And then I'm just adding a little clamp onto it to hold it in place until I'm ready to add them to my wreath. Alright, I'm going to finish a few more. I'll be right back. So I have my mesh ready, and what I'm doing now is adding the zip ties at every intersection at the very top of the wreath. I know I want that mesh to come up and over the edge of the wreath, and I'm placing it along the, you see how, yeah, that's the position I want it in. And so I'm adding these zip ties everywhere there's a bar going down from the very top. So there are 5 there. In the end, we're going to put 3 on, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3 on each side. So a total for the first row will be 11. We're going to need 11 pieces of gathered mesh. Alright. So right there, I'm going to add it so that it's at the very edge as possible, right all the way up to the top. And I'm putting about 1 inch of the mesh into the zip tie, and I'm letting it hang, the mesh hang over the top of the wreath frame. So I'm going to do that in each position. That'll be 5 across the top, and then I'll show you how we want to add the mesh to the sides. Okay, this again is the Monroe triple crown method of gathering the mesh, and it was created by someone named April. And if you want to see more of her work, you can find her on Made by Monroe on Facebook. She has a wonderful site there, and she does all kinds of things with wreaths and bows, and she does paintings, and she does something else. Oh, she has all kinds of things that she and her husband have created for tools and supplies and things to make wreaths. Okay, So I got my 5 going across the top, and now I'm trying to decide where to add them on the side. So I'm going to get each crossbar again on the side. So this one here first. Pulling it as tight as I can, and then I'll go back and pull it even tighter with my pliers. And now I'm going to add a second one at the next crossbar right there. Forgot to add my zip tie. I'm trying to add it without the zip tie. That won't work. And of course you can use pipe cleaners. I tend to use zip ties when I can because it just saves my hand. That twisting with the pipe cleaners is just more work on your hands. And my hands have seen a few days of work. They're starting to get a little tired. Alright, so I put those 2 on the side, and you can see how that one comes all the way down to the bottom as it's kind of spreading out. And I actually put that one on backwards, so I'm twisting it around so that the curl side is down. I forgot to say that earlier. I want those curls edges underneath my mesh so that I can avoid some more raw edges being seen. So that gap between those 2 crossbars, I decided was a little too wide. So I'm adding another gathered mesh right there, another piece. And I just put it halfway between. Yep, and see how now on the edge I got it nice and complete. So like I said, I didn't know how many I would need, so I'm cutting a few more. And this is where I had to go into my second roll of mesh and make, I think, 2 more, because you can see there's one on the side there I still had from the first roll. So I'm going to gather those and get them ready to add. So now back to the opposite side. I'm doing the same thing. I'm adding 1 zip tie halfway between the 2 crossbars. I'm doing 1 and then 1 at each crossbar. I actually put it on sideways like I did the other one. I had to go back and correct that because I want it to be on the crossbar actually, so that I can slide my mesh up underneath it and it'll be facing out. So this one, that one is definitely the zip tie is going along the bar, but I'm still turning it so that it'll face out. And now I'm doing the same thing with the other 2. I've changed them so that I can very easily slide that in and the mesh can face outwards. Okay, I got 1 more to do. And then we're going to talk about adding some ribbon to this row. Okay, got those on. We're going to go back and snip a little bit of the frazzled edges here. I usually say I like to do them as I go along. So here you go. 1, 2, 3 is in between, and then 1, 2, 3. That's in between the 2 crossbars. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then 1 again in between the crossbars, and 10 and 11 are at the side crossbars. And again, see how that mesh comes all the way down to the bottom, so we don't have to worry about that being exposed in the end. So I've tightened these as much as I can. Use my pliers along the way to pull on them. You can see one I missed, and so I went back because when I cut it, I'm like, this feels loose. Alright, so I'm just double checking the others, getting them tight as I can. And now giving them a snip. And these are wire cutters that I'm using. They go through them a lot easier than scissors, and I don't have to worry about messing up my scissors quite as quickly, because our scissors get a little bit of torture. Okay, 2 of the ribbons that I'm using. I am ready to make some tails, and I'm doing this step by step so you can see. Later on you'll see me add the mesh and the tails at the same time. So I decided, since the mesh is 5 inches, I've already taken up 1 inch where I gathered it. So that leaves me 4 inches from zip tie to edge. So you would think your tails would need to be 8 inches, and then when you fold it in half, it'd be 4. But what happens is you actually curl the tails a little bit. So you're actually making them a little shorter. Right now I'm just measuring out 10 inches of ribbon, and I do it in accordion style. Just go back and forth with my 10 inches. That way when I clip my edges, I'm clipping quite a few of them at the same time. Okay, so seeing that um, what was I saying? Oh boy, you would think you need 8 inches, but I chose 10 because when you put it in and you gather it and you secure it, that takes up a little bit of your ease. And then when you give it a little bit of a curl to work with the mesh, then that takes up a little bit of your ease or length. So to make sure I had enough to almost get to the edge of my mesh, I chose 10, and I'm about to cut this wrong. I had caught myself just in time. I'm dovetailing the ends, and because of how I did the accordion fold, I can actually dovetail 2 sets at a time. So I just pull them up and give them a little snip each. So again, my mesh is 4 inches. I cut my tails at 10 inches. I wanted to have 4 inches on each side plus a little extra. That's that other inch, because when you fold it in half, it's 5 inches on each side. So that gives me a little extra to get a little bit of a curl over the mesh. And I'm explaining that so that if you are doing something yourself and you're trying to decide how long the tails need to be, you don't have to keep cutting ribbon and messing it up. You can kind of estimate and get real close to what you're going to need. Okay, so I am dovetailing these and I am folding them in half so I can find my center point easily. And as soon as I get these done, we're going to be adding it to the wreath. Now, like I said, this could have been done the same time you added it to the mesh, but I wanted to do it step by step so it would be clear. You can see what I'm doing. So we're going to come back and do that in a second. If you enjoy these types of videos, especially the Dollar Tree videos using Dollar Tree mesh, please give me a thumbs up and share with others. And if you're not a family member, consider hitting that button and ringing the bell so you can be notified when I release new videos. I'm trying to do as many as possible for the upcoming fall and Christmas season. I have a lot of inventory I would like to move, so hopefully people will be in the mood for making wreaths and buying wreaths. I am going to have a sale for the month of July, for Christmas in July, in my Etsy shop, and I will be posting notifications here in the community tab, so what's happening. So if your notification is turned on, you will be notified. I think each week I might do something a little different in the shop. So what I'm doing now is adding zip ties back at the same location where I added the mesh, because I want the ribbon tails to overlap it. And again, you can do this as one step. I chose to do it as 2 so it'll be really clear what I'm doing. I take my ribbon and give them a little bit of an X, and then I gathered it and then folded it together, side, like I'm doing it side to side. And that way when it went into the zip tie, you'll see how it looks in a minute. It's both sides of the tail are like coming together there in the center. Then I fluff them out a little bit and give them a little bit of a curl so that they're kind of wrapped toward the mesh. So let me do that again. Take the tails, cross them a little bit like that, and then I move this out the way. So then I'm going to gather it down the center. I have a basket on the floor there that I'm sitting at wreath. I'm trying to sit on top of the basket without getting that mesh all tangled into some mesh that's in the basket. I gathered it in the center and folded it together so that it can go into my zip tie. There you go. Alright, so I'm going to do a few more of these real quick so they'll be ready, and then I will be back. Alright, so I've got my little tails there made on the side, and now all I'm going to do is come back, and everywhere there's a zip tie, I'm going to add my tails in and make sure when I close the zip tie, it is right at me, as close as I can get to the zip tie that's holding the mesh. I want that all be gathered at kind of the same point. So I'm going to go back and add one at each point, like I said, and I tend to clip stray frays as I go. So you may see me do that occasionally. When I see them, I'm like, I gotta get them. And I know later on I'm going to overlook them, so I try to grab them when I can. All right, so I add it in, and then I kind of spread out the tail and give it a nice little curve, and make sure the ends are nice and straight so that the points aren't sticking up or going the wrong direction. Get those right, okay, and then I'm going to work my way around here, and I'll be right back. So here we are with the first row completed, and we're ready to move on to row 2. Okay, so now I'm trying to decide where I want to put row 2, and I'm going to start by doing the same areas, those 2 crossbars on the side. I think that when I add it to the top, I won't need like to put anything like an extra one. On the outer edge you had that long curve, and I put an extra one like in the middle. This time I don't think we'll need it. So you can see how it's a little difficult getting the mesh and the ribbon in here at the same time, trying to hold it, making sure the mesh doesn't come ungathered or the ribbon doesn't kind of come apart, but you can do it if you take your time. So I've got that in there, and I'm pulling on it tight, giving my tails a nice little curve again. This mesh is cut the same way. It is cut at 20 inches. It is gathered. This one has those thin metallic lines in the mesh, and I chose the third metallic line to try to follow. Again, if you don't have the lines, just about 1 inch in for the shorter mesh. I think when we doing the 10 inch and the 21 inch mesh for the triple crown wreaths, I think we set it at, I think she gathers at 2 or 2.5 inches. But since you got very short mesh here, we're going to do it at 1 inch, as close to 1 inch as possible. So I have added in those 2 on the side, and then let's see, I think I can't remember if I go to the other side next or if I go to the top. Got those in nice and tight, and don't forget to give it a little curve, pulling it even tighter, just making sure, because you don't want this stuff to start coming apart as you're working with it. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding it in at, I think at the top, but I haven't even added in I'm trying to decide where. Okay, this is the point where I decide I can't come all the way down to that next crossbar there at the next little scallop edge across. Is too far down, so I'm going to have to add some zip ties like halfway down these crossbars. Okay, just for these top 3. Alright, and you'll see when I add this in, this first one here on the side is it's like 2 inches, halfway between the top and the next one. Next row is the next scallop, the outer scallop edge and the next scallop edge. Halfway between that is 2 inches on this one. When I get to this center spoke, I'll wait till I get there so I don't confuse you. So this is like the 2 inch mark. You'll see how it's not all the way down to the scallop edge. It's right in the middle there. And I'm trying to make sure I got that tail in there real good, because you see what a tiny edge I have in there. Don't want that to get pulled out. So that one's got to be good and tight. Alright, pull that tightly. And now the second one, that's bar is a little longer, because you know the top of the whole wreath is a little higher at that point. So this one, there's 5 inches of space between those 2 scallop edges, and so that one will get gathered right at the 2.5 inch mark, because I want it like right in the middle. This is not an exact science, so if you just want to use your eye to estimate where it needs to be in the middle, that'll work out just fine. And besides, no matter how tight you pull these, there's still enough ease in there to kind of slide it up and down. So if you find out at one, when you're looking at your mesh, it's not even, or one is just much higher than the other, you can still slide it a little bit. All right, and so going back to this third one, and this one again is 4 inches, so right at the 2-inch mark is halfway in between, and I am trying to add this to my zip tie. And then I got to get my tail ready. Like I said, this can be difficult to hold everything at once. Okay, I'm gonna put my little tail, the edge of my tail in there, and pull the zip tie tight. Like I said, that one I really was pressing my luck. I think I'm trying to slide some more of that ribbon under there now because I was barely catching that ribbon. Alright, got that in there, shaping my ribbon. Right here, this mesh overlaps the next ribbon, so I'm tucking it underneath. I want the ribbon to be on top. Now I'm going to go back and pull everything nice and tight. Okay. Alright, now on the side, I'm doing the same as the opposite side. I'm just going to do 2 where those crossbars meet. Okay, so right there I'm putting a zip tie. And then at the next one I'm putting a zip tie. And again, the mesh is wide enough, it spans enough that it'll come almost all the way to the end, almost all the way to the bottom of the wreath frame. Okay, so let me get these 2 added in, and we'll be right back. So I just want to flip this over and walk through again where I have added the zip ties in my mesh. So you got one here, those crossbars, and then the center of the top ones, and then at the crossbars on the other side. So total for that is 7. You need 7 gathered mesh for row 2. Alright, row 3. I'm going to do the same again on the sides. I added 1 there. And now I'm trying to decide, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to do the same, because the next one, even though it's saying, it's like I can do the side or I can do the top because they're kind of the same position. So I'm decided to try the top and see what happens. Okay, so I am back to my multicolor mesh. This time I have gathered on the brown side of that mesh, the brown edge. Remember that mesh had one end that was gold, one end that was brown. So I decided to take advantage of that. So when you look at this wreath, the outer edge shown in the background will be that brownish color. The outer edge shown from this row will be the gold color. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a different look using the same mesh. So you don't have to keep buying a whole bunch of mesh. And I'm sharing there how that was brown and how this one is gold, showing at the top. Okay, so I'm going to add in these 2 and see if it's close enough, or to see if I need to still add another one in between. And this is where it gets to be fun, when you got a lot of mesh on there already and you try to add a piece and it gets tangled into the mesh that's already laying there. So you kind of got to lift over. You can't drag this stuff around because it will catch on each other. So remember to lift it and then bring it down right where you want it, and hopefully you'll avoid catching the other mesh. Alright, so I got these 2 on, and now I decided, yeah, I need another one. So right in between again, on that same bar, I'm adding another one, because you can see there's a big gap there. Alright, so I'm going to go in, add that. And just to make it easier on myself, since I'm trying to work in between 2 things here, I'm going back to the first method. I added the mesh first, and now I'm going to add another zip tie and add the tails. So I don't have to worry about fitting in between these 2 and trying to get the mesh and the tails in without snagging and getting caught on other mesh. Let's just do one thing at a time there, make it easy on myself. Alright, so I've got my mesh and I've got my tails in, pulling everything nice and tight. Here again, I'm going to separate out my, my bow. Separate out my tails, get them nice and fluffed, and try to eventually get that mesh underneath the bow. I see I left some mesh there, sticking on top of the ribbon tails. But I'll get that tucked in later. Alright, so we're on the other side now. And again, you can see it will be one at each crossbar and one in the center this time. I'm going to go ahead and add it so I can work on it as I go. So we've got 3 on each side so far. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my mesh here. Again, it is gathered so that the gold is facing out. So now with both sides added on this row, I'm going to put one right there at that crossbar at the very top. And then that's going to be enough to get that whole loop over all the way around of the same mesh. Alright, so I'm getting that in there, getting it fluffed, getting my tail situated nicely, and giving it a snip. Well, giving it a pull first, and then I'll give it a snip. Now this is where you can see that your mesh, because there's mesh underneath it, I've got 2 rows of mesh underneath this row. It's helping it to stand up a little bit more. So you can decide for yourself if you want to make your ribbons a little longer or if you want them to stay the same. If they stay shorter, they'll appear even shorter because now they have to stand up a little bit. Or you can make them a little longer, go from like 10 inches to maybe 12 inches. And then they can kind of curl over a little bit, but you know, that's personal preference. I'm going to stick with the 10-inch. I decided to add one gathered mesh at the very bottom center only because it will not show that the wreath form will not show through because I'm going to add a bow and I'm going to add a little turkey to this. But I decided to do this because I did not want the bow to sink in because I've got all this mesh on each side, and then if I attach the bow and get it to stay exactly where I want it, it could actually sink into the wreath. And sometimes people ask, how do you keep that from happening? Adding some mesh underneath. I probably didn't even need the tails. It won't hurt either way. But if you add some mesh underneath there, and not have a place where it's just allowed to sink in, you can avoid that from happening. Alright, let's get ready for the next step. So I've clipped all my zip ties, got them nice and tight, and now I'm flipping over to show you again exactly where I added the mesh. So 1, 2, 3 on that side, 1, 2, 3 on that side, and one at the top. And I did not point out the one at the bottom, but you can see that clearly too. Last row. So I decided to go back to my green mesh so I'd have some alternating colors. A lot of this one will not be seen because it'll be behind your little turkey, if you choose to use one in the center. And I needed just a few extra cuts. What did we use before? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I can't remember. I don't want to mess you up, say the wrong number. At any rate, as I was doing this, I did have to, if I haven't already, I do use 2 rolls of this green mesh. So I end up 2 rolls of the multicolor, 2 rolls of the green. But the multicolor, I kind of get 2 effects because one I have the brown edge showing and one row I have the yellow edge showing. So 2 for 1 there. Again, I'm gathering it up, getting it ready to add on. And I'll be right back when we're ready to add this in. So for this last tier or row, we're going to do one at the bottom there where the crossbars are, one close to the top. It's like about I guess about 1 inch down from where the previous one is because there are no more crossbars up there, but I do want this other color to fill in. And then I'm going to do 2 in the center, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so let's add this mesh here at the bottom. Again, the bottom one is to prevent from having a hole. The wreath form won't be seen, but we don't want everything to dip in right at that point. And then it'll have some nice tails and color you know, peeking through. So I've got that one on, and then I'm going to clip that, and then we're going to flip it to go to the top and add one in there. And don't forget to stay tuned till the end so you can see the finished product, and you can see how this wreath would look on different color doors. I always share that. Give you an idea of maybe what it would look like on your door. Hopefully I'll have something similar to your color door. So here's the next one. Like I said, it's about an inch down from the previous one, because there is no more crossbars there at the top. So I just brought it down. Okay, and I'm going to fluff that up a little bit and tighten it and give it a clip. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with others. And if you're not a family member, think about subscribing, ringing the bell so you can be notified when videos are released. And also checking your settings to make sure your notifications are turned on, because sometimes it happens when a reset is done to the whole system that sometimes that setting is turned off. So I've added one zip tie there in the very center, and you see how I have this mesh. Looking at the camera, the mesh is going to your left. I'm going to put that in nice and tight and shape that up. Get that going, and now I'm going to go and add a zip tie at the just about the same exact location. Just getting a few things out of the way. And I love how I do that and then remember you didn't put a zip tie there. So it's going to, you can see I'm putting it right next to the other one there. You can probably barely see it because it's so close. Alright, get that in there. And now I'm going to add a bundle, but now it's facing what would be to the right, but I turned the wreath. So it's the opposite of the way the other one is, right there in the center. That one is now facing you on the camera, and this last one I'm putting in is facing me. So it's just the opposite side. One went left, one went right. So you can see it's almost, we got right to, the top is fuller than the bottom, but you can see we almost got a center point here where we brought everything to. So let's get that clipped off, and then we can talk about adding our focal point, whether that be a sign for you or something else. Okay, so one there, two there right in the center, one facing each way, and then one at the top and bottom. So you need 4 of the green gathered mesh for that. I got this cute little turkey from Hobby Lobby. It's a little kit for you to do with your kids, and I thought it was adorable. And since this wreath will be in an office setting where there'll be kids around, I thought this would work just nice, really nice. So now we're making our bow. I started with a 8-inch tail, and I decided I wanted this bow to go from side to side and not be a complete circle. So I'm going to make my tails the same length as my loops. So I did an 8-inch tail, I did 2 8-inch loops, and I'm going to finish off with an 8-inch tail. I'll snip that in just a second. And the next thing I'm going to do is the same with this stripe ribbon. I am doing 8-inch tails and 8-inch loops, and I'm moving a little faster now because a lot of you already know how to make bows. If not, I have an entire series on how to make a bow. It's in the description box below, and it will take you slowly, step by step, through making all different types of bows. Alright, so now that I'm on my 3rd color, and these are the same colors I used to buy tails, I am doing a 7-inch tail and 7-inch loops. Same with this dotted ribbon. 7-inch tail and 7-inch loops. Get that in there, and I use that clamp to hold it so it doesn't raise up while I'm trying to fluff and shape. And it took me a minute to kind of get this shaped out. I don't know why. I guess because some of the colors were, I mean, the stripes and the dots, they're the same colors, and everything is folded together. I'm like, no, I already have that here. Let me move that over there. So I'm going back to the same colors again, starting with the green, this time 5-inch tails. No, I'm sorry. Went from 8 to 7, so now 6-inch tails and 6-inch loops. Same with the stripe. 6-inch tail, 6-inch loop. And then the very last two will be 5-inch tails and 5-inch loops. So this orange and the polka dot will be a 5-inch tail, 5-inch loop. So I did 2 at 8, 2 at 7, 2 at 6, 2 at 5. And that'll give me a lot more fluff in the center of my bow, a lot more fullness. Okay, let's get this last one on here. And then, you know, for me, I like to shape, and then shape some more. Even when I finish a video, I go back and I'm still shaping that bow. I really like really nice fluffy bows. Okay. So when you aren't looking, y'all know I always forget to add my zip tie and my pipe cleaner. I have slid that up under there, and now I'm going to close off my zip tie. I'm going to move this clamp out the way, and I'm going to slowly lift this off, because once I get it off and I start to turn that zip tie to the back, then I put my fingers down the side. See how that finger is? Straight down the side, because your ribbon is stacked and you got a nice little column there of ribbon. You don't want that ribbon to start sliding back and forth and to the side and all that. You want it to stay in that nice straight stack. And that's another thing that helps you get a nice looking bow. Everything stays where it's supposed to be. So I have pulled it semi-tight, enough that it's holding, but I can shape my bow. You can see I'm still holding it in the center, because it's not tight, so tight that this ribbon won't move. And you can pull one section and end up pulling from the other side, and then your bow is unbalanced. You don't want that to happen either. So you want to move things side to side and fluff, but you don't want to distort your ribbon by pulling one side to the other. You end up with a 6-inch loop on one side and a 5-inch loop on the other of the same ribbon. So you can see now how we've got these nice layers, from 8, 7, 6, and 5. You can just see each, different points, the ribbon just coming in shorter and shorter. And I have pulled my zip tie good and tight here, and that made the center of the bow stand up even more. So now I've placed these on here and got them how I wanted to look. I took this thing, I think it's called a weeder. People use it with the Cricut. I don't do Cricut, I haven't learned that. But I like the tools. I pick them up at Dollar Tree. So I use that to just poke a nice little hole into this. This is like a really thin foam board type material. Foam, some kind of foam. You can see how thin it is. That thing went straight through, and I'm using that to pull some one pipe cleaner through. I folded it in half, and it's going through on each side, so I can attach this little turkey. I'm pretty sure the kids are gonna love this. And I feed one into each hole. I'm not worrying about it showing on the front, because the bow is going to be on top of it and you won't see it. So I pulled it through, and now I got to get it lined up where I want it. The turkey's feet are at the very bottom of the wreath, and that's where the bow is going to go. So you got all of this spread, like his feathers, along with the mesh and all. That's kind of imitating the spread of his feathers going further, going side and top. Alright, so let me get that fed through here. It goes right, that pipe cleaner will go right through the mesh. You just got to slip it past the ribbon. And then I'm giving it a little twist. Don't pull it so tight that you pull it in and again make a dent in your wreath. Even with what I did here, you'll see later, the hat. See how the hat is sticking up? So it's still kind of fluffed up by the mesh underneath. I pulled it a little tight, so I may go back and loosen that a little bit. And now I got to place this bow right at the bottom. And again, I'm trying to make sure I have everything centered, so his hat is going straight toward the center of the top. You see I had to pull it a little bit to the side. Didn't have it quite right. And now I add this bow so it is going side to side. I got to get this pipe cleaner pushed through again, and it's going to come in at the bottom might change that a little bit and put it like right below his, trying to decide, right below his wings would be an interesting place to attach this bow. But I was afraid I would cover up the give thanks. And this is a little kit that glues together, and I'm afraid if I try to move that give thanks, I'm going to pull off layers and it's going to look a mess. So I'm going to leave everything as it is and get this bow attached on the back. And you can see I had one little piece of mesh left over hanging on to the side there. I don't even know if you can notice it. Giving this a little twist, and then I'm going to attach it to part of the frame that's higher up, so that the bow won't, gravity over time will pull that bow down. So I'm going to attach it to, you'll see the part there that's higher up, so that it won't be able to move. I mean, it won't be able to slide down. So that'll get held in place, and then I can give it a few twists and tuck that back into the wreath so you won't see the ends. I did not do it for this video. I think I will go back and do a felt backing for this wreath because there's just so much going on, and I think if it's left like this, when it's handled, you'll get more fraying. And this one will be used indoors, so I'm not worried about the felt, holding water and messing up someone's door. That's why people don't do it on the outside wreaths a lot of times. They're afraid that the felt will hold rainwater and mold, actually. If it's a very shady spot and there's no sun to dry that wreath out, you could end up with some problems. Some people spray protectors onto the backing to prevent that, but I'd rather not take that chance. Don't want to mess up anybody's door. Doors cost too much money. So anywho, that's just my thinking. Other people may have found things completely different. Alright, so now it's time, for me. I'm going to fluff that bow. I'm going to trim any little frays I see. And then we're going to share some pictures and show you what it would look like on different doors. And oh child, we've got another one done. Let me flip this around and show it to you so you can see a bit of the final product, and then I'll share some more pictures. Okay, hang in there a second. I thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll be talking with you again real soon.